Alright, so now we have already seen the POC, that is the fine-tuned design. Though there are a lot of features still remaining like sign in, sign up, and also the shopping cart. All these features will have its own CSS and will further fine-tune that. But right now, whatever data we have on the screen is actually the fixed data. When you are dealing with the React, generally when you see the data on the page, that actually comes from the database. Right now, the data which we have is fixed inside the file. But let's try to convert this data into states. You already know that the React state is basically the data which is automatically rendered on the DOM on each change. So that's what we are going to do. For the state management, you can directly deal with the hooks also. In the React also you have many ways directly taking the states. But to make the state globally available, we are going to use a framework called Redux. The Redux framework needs to be installed first. So let's install. I'll say yarn add Redux. There is one more package you need to configure is React Redux. And for the asynchronous process, we are going to add the Redux thunk. So these three packages are needed at the moment. Let's install this. This is going to take some time. Alright, so now we have all the packages used to manage the Redux. Now we are also going to create a folder structure. So here in the src folder, I'm going to create one main folder called Redux. Inside this, I will have a folder for the actions, another folder for the reducers, and let's also create a folder called store. Now let's just start the project first. Alright, so here is the output. Now let's think which section we need to first of all convert with the state management, and that too using Redux. Let's take this menu, which is actually the fixed menu. Now we want to make it dynamic, and the state should have this menu items. Now this menu is actually part of this top menu file, and here is the menu items in the array. This has to be part of state. So we'll begin with this section first. I'll go to actions and I will create the menu.js file. Let me rename it to top menu in fact. This top menu, let's shift to a folder called top menu. And then this top menu.js can be renamed with index.js. So this is the more better way. First I tried the simple way. Now we are going to the actual way. How should we implement? Alright, so this has to be the structure. Now let's try to define the actions. We'll directly export the constants. I'll create the get top menu. This is an action creator. Now inside this we are going to have a return statement, and this is the object literal which is eventually part of a dispatch which is going to call the reducer. So let's say here the type is menu and the payload is an array. So now here let's try this array with payload like home, kids and accessories, and this we are going to configure as main menu. Men and women I have not written intentionally so that you can see the difference at a later stage. The next step is we are going to define the reducer. Again there will be a folder top menu, and in this top menu we'll again have the index.js. Reducer is nothing but just a function, but when it is passed as a parameter to the create store, then it becomes the reducer. Here I'll say export const. Now the state will be the parameter, and here the initial assignment to the state will be a value initial state, which I'm going to define in a moment. and there will be an action. At the moment we are going to return the state. There might be conditions also, but that we will see as we move ahead. I'll say return the original copy and the new state. The payload which we are passing will be part of action data, so that also I'm returning. Let's define the initial state. Now let's also create one main index file for the reducer. In this file we are going to combine all the reducers. Here I'm going to say import combine reducers from Redux. Now all the reducers which we have, right now we have just one reducer, but in future we will have multiple reducers. All we are going to import here and we are going to combine. At the moment we have top menu. I will say import top menu from the folder. Now let's create a root reducer where we are going to combine all the reducers. Here we have just the top menu. I am not writing top menu is equal to top menu, that is colon, because this is a kind of destructuring happening. So top menu will be the alias for the top menu reducer, and root reducer will have combined reducers. Now let's export the root reducer. Now let's create a store. This is where we are going to create the global store. So first we are going to import the root reducer. Let's also import the create store. Now we are creating the global store named store, and we are going to pass the root reducer as a parameter to the create store function. There you are. Now let's also export this store. Now let's go to the main index.js of our application. Here we need to import the store and we need to configure the global store with a provider. So here I'm going to import the provider from React Redux and also going to import the store. Now the next thing is we are going to wrap the app with provider. So here I'm going to say store, and the store we are passing as a parameter to the provider, and the end will be here. So the Redux configuration is done more or less with a simple top menu component. Now we need to check whether we get that data from the global state or not. The array which you see on line number 4, that is something which we want to bring from Redux, that is the global state. So we'll have to connect. So first thing we are going to import the connect, which is actually a high order function which will help to connect with the global store. So I'm going to import that from React Redux, and we'll also have to import the action. I can use star also here, but at the moment we just have one action. So I'm going to say get top menu. That's the action we want to import. So I'll say get top menu from ... Again, one more time. Here we have the Redux folder in which we have actions. Let's put a semicolon. Now comes the important part. We need to use the map state to props and map dispatch to props. So I'm going to use map state to props here. Here I have the state, and I'm going to return the destructured state itself. I can certainly write props colon state, but it is direct destructuring. Let's also write the map dispatch to props as well. The dispatch will be the parameter, and I'm going to return. There is a local entity called get menu I'm creating, and here I'm going to say dispatch and the get top menu. Alright, now we need to connect this. So I'm going to change the last line. Here I'm going to write the connect method. The first parameter will be map state to props. The second will be map dispatch to props. The second parameter is optional here. So in case if you don't have map dispatch to props, you can avoid that. But if you want just to pass map dispatch to props, you will have to use null comma map dispatch to props. This is how you have to write in case if you do not have the map state to props. So let me just rewrite. Okay, so now we have almost configured the main parts here. Next thing is we need to check the state which we have retrieved here, which is actually props. That is now I have added here in the top menu parameter. Let's first of all try to display this. So I'm going to change the syntax of the function a bit. I'm going to write a console log statement here, and I will try to display the value of props. Let me also add a return statement. And here I'm going to add the console. Let's check what do we have in the props. I'll open the developer tool. You see that there is an object getting displayed. And here we have the state because we have destructured the state. Now inside this, we have the top menu. But as you see that the top menu is actually an object literal, and each item, home, kids and accessories, is returned as individual item in the object literal. At the moment, we will be needing the array when we have to map through, or that is when we have to loop through this. So we'll make few changes time being. One thing is for sure, this line number 6 menu that we don't need. So at the moment I can comment it, right? And the one which we saw just now in the console log where we had the top menu inside the state, that is where we need to loop through. But you could see that it was not an array, right? So time being, we are going to convert few things to make sure that we have array, which later on we are going to update with object literals. So I'll go to the reducer, and the initial state, I'm fixing a value that this is going to be an array. Later on, when we have more items, we'll have object literal of various array items. And here also I'm straight away returning the action data. And in case in the very first render, when we do not have the action data, at that time we are going to return the state, which is going to be an array. So this is just a temporary arrangement. Later on it will be changed with more conditions and switch case. Now let's go to the top menu again. And here in the code, we are going to loop through the map method. We are going to change. So instead of this menu.map, I'm going to say props.state.topmenu.map. That's the value we are going to receive. And now you see that on the top menu bar, we have home, kids and accessories. Let me remind you that these values are part of the action.js of top menu. So now the state is configured globally. So Redux is now working the way we are expecting. So now we are going to add more actions and reducers for individual components, and all the data we are going to bring dynamically. So step by step, now we are going to configure this, and we'll try to improve the Redux in the entire application.